Sorry. Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this council meeting of the Town of Lincoln of August 8th, 2023 to order and ask that everyone please stand for the national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. Please be seated. I would like to begin this evening by reading a safety notice. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate council chambers to the nearest exit through the chamber doors and obey all instructions given. And if assistance is required, please see Madam Clerk. Once you have evacuated the building, please gather in the front parking lot outside of Town Hall. Also, please ensure that you place your cell phones on silent or turn them off. And lastly, the Town of Lincoln Council meetings are posted on our YouTube channel. Closed captioning is available on all our videos by selecting the closed captioning button on the bottom right of the video. The Town of Lincoln, being part of Niagara Region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawandrunk, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara and the Town of Lincoln stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Members of council are in attendance either in the chambers or virtually. We also have staff attending both in person and remotely. And also in attendance this evening, we have Ms. Catherine Habermal and Sherry Tate from Niagara Region and Regional Councillor Foster. Do members have any additions or amendments to the order of the agenda? There being none, are there any declarations of interest? Do members have any announcements? Please remember you have a limit of 3 items. Deputy Mayor Councillor Bernay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few announcements. On Thursday, July the 27th, I attended the Walker Brothers Summer Barbecue, which took place at the Vineland Quarry at the corner of Victoria Avenue and Fly Road. Brought greetings on behalf of Mayor Easton and Council, along with Councillor Reimer, who was also in attendance. It was an enjoyable afternoon. It was well attended. This is an opportunity for Walker Brothers to invite a number of neighborhood residents that live in the Camden area along Victoria Avenue and in that quadrant up there to come and understand what Walker Brothers is doing in the community. And some interesting facts on Walker Brothers. They started operating their first limestone quarry in 1887, 135 years ago. They acquired the Vineland Quarry in 1969. And they're now operated by 5th generation Walker, President Geordie Walker, who actually took quite some time and spoke to Councillor Reimer and I as we were there and talked about some of their plans and what they're doing in the area and their commitment to the community. Later that evening, I attended the second session of the PIC for the short-term accommodation here in the council chambers. And finally, Madam Mayor, on Saturday, July 29th, attended the grand reopening of the London-born winery on Cherry Avenue, along with Councillor Timmers, Councillor Reimer, and Councillor Pachariva. And we cut the ribbon and presented them a congratulatory certificate. And many thanks to Cameron Rotz and the economic development team for their continued support of businesses such as London-born. And finally, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to just quickly make an announcement that on Saturday, this coming Saturday, August the 12th, between 10 and 12 o'clock, we'll be celebrating along with the community services team the grand reopening of the Ashby Drive Park. And everyone can come and listen to our MC Hammer, Councillor Pachariva, as he's never seen a mic he didn't like. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Councillor Brunet, for that introduction. So Friday, August 11th, there's a gal that we met at the State of the Region address, Sharon Corcoran. She's putting on an event Friday, August 11th at Peninsula Ridge. It's from 1 to 5. It's an inspirational afternoon dedicated to the strength and resilience of women in our community. The event will be at Peninsula Ridge, and it will bring gals together for fun-filled and meaningful celebration of networking, empowerment, and self-care. And they'll be supporting a very important nonprofit, the Shoebox Project of Niagara. So, ladies, if you're not doing anything Friday afternoon, I encourage you to go to this event. It sounds like a lot of fun. And then, yes, on Saturday, we're going to have the grand reopening of Ashby Park. We've waited a long time for that. Bring your bike. You can bling it at the craft station and try the bicycle playground. And I mean, if seeing Councillor Brunet and myself is not enough, there's going to be an ice cream truck there. So who doesn't love ice cream? So come on out. Maybe we'll have an informal ward meeting there too. So you can bend our ear, tell us what we're doing right, even tell us what we're not doing right. So I encourage everyone to come out. It's going to be awesome. That park is terrific. Bring your bikes, rollerblades, you name it. I think I might cycle over there, and we'll have a fun morning. Thank you, Worship.
Very good, Councillor. All right, let's see if Councillor Murray can just catch on, and let's see what kind of spirit she's got to bring to the meeting tonight. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm afraid I can't hit that level of enthusiasm, but I am very pleased to say that as the Vice Chair of the Planning and ECDEV Committee, I had the opportunity last week to tour with our ECDEV department and visiting a number of Lincoln businesses to present them with a ceremonial check representing their digital transformation grant. It's my understanding that more than 40 Lincoln businesses were recipients of this grant, and I'd like to thank our ECDEV team for their work in facilitating this program and to congratulate all of the businesses that were able to take advantage of it. I was also able to attend the latest Niagara Benchlands Tourism Town Hall hosted at Creekside Estates. It was really exciting to see the initiatives that the town of Lincoln is implementing to support our tourism and hospitality sectors. And I was very impressed with the strong cooperative spirit that these businesses are showing as they work collaboratively to build not just their own businesses, but the industry as a whole within our community. So I'd like to thank those businesses who attended and were willing to share and talk a little bit about what's happening with them, and also to Niagara Benchlands and our tourism team for creating this opportunity. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Mine's going to be a little low key. Hard act to follow over here. On July 26th, I attended with Councillor Pachariva the Beansville Early Learning and Daycare Center. And as a registered early childhood educator myself, I was pretty excited to step into that toddler preschool room. It's been a lot of years. So yeah, it was great. It's a beautiful facility and very well run. And I was really, really pleased to have a chance to go and have a tour and meet the staff and high five all the little kids, of course, but that's the perks of the job. I get to do those fun things. And I was also at the London-born winery opening, and the neighborhood there was so excited. It was just a fantastic event. And like Councillor Bernay said, everybody was really excited, and it was pouring, absolutely pouring rain, and it was packed. So thank you to Councillor Reimer and Councillor Pachariva and Bernay for coming out to that. And what else? This week I attended Jillian's Place tour with you, Mayor, and our CAO and our clerk. And Councillor Reimer was there, and they've done a lot of work on the inside of that building. It's just absolutely beautiful. It's very welcoming. They do really great work in that, under that roof there. So anyway, I was very pleased to be there. Thank you, Mary Easton.
Great. Good job. And
Thank you very much. Just want to say thank you to Director Dave Graham for offering myself and Chair Brunei tour, an opportunity to visit the MTO inspection station while they were having their blitz. Drive by it, you drive by it all the time. You don't know what's in that building, but I can tell you the technology they have in there is incredible, and how they are able to spot deficiencies with vehicles, with them not even having to stop. They're able to, with state-of-the-art technology, thermal scan, tell if brakes are seizing up or if they're not working. It's a collaborative effort between multi departments. There's Hamilton Police Services there. There's Niagara Regional, OPP, and MTO. And the thing that really made Councillor Chair Brunei and myself proud was the comment that the MTO made about how the investment we made with those cameras, the bypass cameras, and other municipalities are visiting and looking at that technology also, because we're not the only ones that are having this problem. And it's really incredible how how it works, how they're able to determine if there's scale dodgers. It's there was a lot of kudos that were offered up to the two of us, and it made us feel really proud to be part of that initiative. And looking forward to what they have in store moving forward. Also, they're always changing how they do things. Because the people get smart, and they're adapting also. So it was just want to thank Director Dave, though he's not here tonight, but thank you.
all great news, councillors, and thanks very much for reporting on that, Councillor Mikulik. I went during the last blitz, and I must admit, just kicking things up a notch by having them involved now, that adds a whole new dimension to it, makes our investment gain greater capacity. And yes, you're absolutely right. Some of these operators, they do get pretty creative, but the outcomes can be pretty disastrous. So thanks very much, councillors. I'm sure everybody in the community appreciates your involvement. Item number 8 is proclamations. We have no proclamations this evening. We have no recognition and achievements this evening. However, we do have delegations and presentations, and I would like everyone now to consider item 10.1. And you've heard us speak a lot about Catherine Habermill, who's the Director of Waste Management, because she's one of those people that we know at the region that's on top of things. And she is here this evening, and I'm very glad that you've come, Catherine, and that you and Sherry Tate, who's the Manager of Policy and Planning, that Sherry is here. I'm sure that we're going to have lots of questions for Catherine. There's many changes coming down the road, and the best way to hear them is from her directly. And then we'll see where we go with the questions. So Catherine, please Thank you very much for coming and welcome. And just give me 1 second. I think that the clerk needs to make a switch possibly.
No, thanks, Madam Mayor. I do want council to proceed with a majority vote to extend the presentation times that might be slightly over that time as per our procedural bylaw. So a show of hands if council can just do that. And that was a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva and Councillor Timmers. Thank you, and that carries.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Catherine.
Well, thank you, and thank you for those kind introductions. So good evening, Mayor Easton and council members. Thank you for the invitation to present to you and those listening this evening regarding the upcoming changes to the residential blue box program under Ontario Regulation 391/21. For those that don't know me, I'm Catherine Habermill. I'm the Director of Waste Management Services for the Niagara region, and my colleague Sherry Tate, Manager of Policy and Planning, and also the lead on this file, is joining me this evening. Sherry will provide an overview of what the new blue box framework looks like under Regulation 391/21, and I will cover and review some of the decision points that have been made or are still being considered by Regional Council. And then Sherry will finish up speaking about the impact specifically to Niagara. I'd also like to take this time to thank Council for their indulgence in providing us additional time in order for us to effectively convey our points on this matter. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Tate to begin.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. So just for those that are not familiar with what individual producer responsibility is, I'll just quickly go over what it means. So it means that producers are responsible for the waste generated from their products and packaging that are sold to consumers. So producers in the context of the blue box regulation are brand owners, importers, or retailers of products that contain blue box materials. They're any company that supplies products into the Ontario market, including online sales. So the province did release OREG 391/21, known as the Blue Box Regulation, in June 2021, and that makes producers of the designated blue box materials financially and operationally responsible to meet certain outcomes contained in the regulation. This slide just shows some examples of some producers. Many have signed with the Producer Responsibility Organization to help them meet their obligations under the regulations, such as collections and management of their blue box material. Circular Materials Ontario is one of the Producer Responsibility Organizations, and I'll speak a little bit more about them in a few slides. So what is the fundamental difference between the current blue box program and the new one under the producer responsibility framework? This slide just visually shows the difference, which basically means instead of producers funding 50% of the residential blue box program, and then the rest remaining is 50% is funded through the tax base. So now under this new framework, producers are 100% responsible for the costs in addition to the collection and processing of the material, where local governments have done the collection and processing in the past. So communities started to transition July 1st, 2023 to full producer responsibility. For example, London, Toronto, Ottawa have already transitioned, and Niagara transitions January 1st, 2024, with all communities fully transitioning by January 1, 2026. So how will the material be collected after transition? So as the majority producer responsibility organization, CMO, is responsible for setting up the common collection system, which is basically how the material will be collected. They reached out to eligible communities to see if they were interested in providing collections on their behalf during the transition period, which for the transition period is July 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2025, and for Niagara region, it was January 1, 2024 to December 31st, 2025. If eligible communities wanted to provide the collection on their behalf, they would need to agree and sign to a master service agreement and statement of work. If an eligible community does not agree, they will, CMO would go to their existing collection contractors in that community to provide collection during that transition period. If they did not agree to this, CMO would go through a competitive procurement process to determine who the contractor would be. So CMO did release RFPs for the transition and post-transition contracts. I see my screen has stopped sharing, so I can share it again. Try and go. To the right one. So next, I'm going to pass it over to Catherine for some of the decision points.
Sherry.
Yep.
So Mary Easton, members of council do have a copy of your presentation.
Okay.
If you, when you're ready to proceed, we do have, just tell us what page you're on and if it doesn't.
Can you see my screen now? I did start sharing. Can you see it?
We can see it now.
Okay, perfect.
Actually, Sherry, it's the clerk. Hi, we're just having some technical difficulties on the live stream.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, if you can stop sharing your screen, we'll bring up the presentation on our end. And the presentation should show on our live stream. Sorry about that.
No problem. So
Thank
I'm
you.
on slide 7, just so you're aware.
Okay. Thanks very much. Give me one moment. It
Yes.
seems to be working. So if you could carry on and just let us know when to proceed the next slide. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So I'll pass it on to Catherine for the next few slides.
Great, thank you, Sherry. So as I mentioned, there's a number of decisions that Regional Council has made or will be considering as a result of the Regulation 391-21. First, Niagara Region had to make the decision to whether or not to continue to provide collection services for eligible sources, being residents, single family or multi-residential, facilities such as long-term and retirement homes, public space and depots, and promotion and education on behalf of the producers during the transition period. And again, that transition period is January 1st, 2024 to December 31st of 2025 for Niagara. So during the transition period, eligible communities may opt in to providing the service by accepting Circular Material or CMO's Master Service Agreement and their statement of work being offered for the various services that I just noted above. So Waste Management, in collaboration with our internal legal counsel, reviewed these documents, the Master Service Agreement and the statement of work, and determined that there would be financial and legal risks if we signed both those documents in their current form. There were a number of clauses that did not align with the terms and clauses with our current contractors, being GFL and Miller Waste. Both contractors indicated that they would not agree to CMO's terms and that any changes to current clauses would or could come at a price. And although CMO's compensation offer to Niagara to continue providing services on their behalf covered our current program costs, it did not cover any additional costs that may arise from these negotiations with Miller and GFL. And so therefore, based on staff's recommendation, council elected to opt out of providing collection services to the eligible sources on behalf of CMO as of January 1st of 2024. So what does that mean for Niagara? Well, CMO now will commence negotiations directly with Miller and GFL for the provision of collection services to the eligible sources here in Niagara. I can tell you that looking at what's occurred in other municipalities that have transitioned already, CMO has been successful in negotiating with the existing contractors or service providers in those areas. And therefore, we believe that CMO will be successful in negotiating a 2-year term with Miller and GFL for Niagara Region. Next slide, please. So with the removal of the collection services to those eligible services, there could be some savings, although the exact amount is not known at this time. What I can tell you that is in 2023, staff estimated a $5.8 million reduction in the net residential collection costs for the 2024 budget. Now, this estimate will change based on a number of factors, one of them being decisions that still need to be made by council as a result of this regulation, inflationary pressures that we're currently seeing across all sectors. And also beginning in 2020, reserve funds were used to mitigate waste management increases, knowing that we would have these additional future cost savings related to the recycling collection and that these funds could be returned back to reserves. Next slide, please. So the provision of recycling collection services to special events or community events was not included in the Blue Box regulation and is considered a non-eligible source. Therefore, producers are not obligated to provide collection services to this group. At its July 2023 meeting, Regional Council opted to continue to provide services for the next 2 years, and therefore event organizers and community event organizers will not see any major changes. Staff will then have time to better understand the transition to full producer responsibility in 2026 and will make further recommendations regarding the service. The cost to continue the service to community events is approximately $35,000 a year. Next slide, please. So designated materials are defined in the Blue Box regulation. When we compare that list to what Niagara currently collects, there are 2 material types that are not considered designated materials, and those being books and flexible packaging that's used for containment of food, being sandwich or freezer bags. These items represent less than 1% of the total residential volume of recyclables collected in Niagara. As such, Niagara Region opted to discontinue providing this collection of these services, given the challenges that are listed in front of you on the screen and the cost to provide a separate collection for these materials. I will note that in 2026, the list of designated materials under the regulation will expand across the province to include single-use products such as cutlery and straws and multi-laminate packaging. Next slide, please. Okay. There's also a decision whether or not to accept recyclable materials from designated sources at our region's residential drop-off depots during and after the transition period. Producers are obligated to offer depot services during the transition years, which for Niagara again is January 1st of 2024 to December 31st of 2025. Niagara Region currently operates 4 drop-off depots, 1 in Fort Erie, 1 at Walker Industries in Thorold, 1 at Humberstone Landfill in Welland, and 1 in West Lincoln at the Niagara Road 12 landfill. We are currently evaluating the contracts from CMO and will be taking a report back to council next month on this issue. Producers may choose to operate residential drop-off depots where there is curbside collection post-transition, so that's January 1st of 2026 and onward, but they're not obligated. If producers continue to operate, they may wish to contract with Niagara Region to operate some of all of those residential drop-off depots I noted earlier. Next slide. So lastly, another decision point is in regards to servicing non-eligible property types, which is really mainly the industrial, commercial, and institutional during the transition and after the full transition starting January 1st of 2026. This is still being considered by staff. For the most part, non-eligible sources are currently collected in Niagara with the same truck that collects the eligible sources, mainly being residential. Niagara Region will now be responsible for the collection and associated cost of service non-eligible sources. In Niagara, we estimate that to be approximately 6,000 non-eligible stops that are currently being serviced. This can be accomplished in 2 ways if we want to continue this service. We continue to co-collect with the eligible sources at no cost to the region for collection. However, we would be responsible for paying a processing fee per ton. Under this scenario, Niagara would be required to submit an address list to CMO of all the non-eligible sources that we would want to continue servicing, and we would not be able to add any new stops during the transition period. However, if Niagara wishes, we could offer a separate collection service outside of the CMO contract and directly negotiate with our service providers, but this could come at a higher price, and we could add properties to the service at our discretion. As I noted, staff are currently negotiating a price with Miller and GFL for the scenario, and we will be bringing back a recommendation to Regional Council next month. In 2026, after the transition period, I will note that we will not be allowed to blend the collection of non-eligible and eligible materials, and therefore this would be a separate cost and a separate collection service and a cost to Niagara Region for both collection and processing. And I'll turn it over to Sherry now.
Great, next slide, please. So there will be some changes or potential changes to the Blue Box program as a result of this Blue Box regulation. And over the next few slides, we'll go over a few of these. First, during the transition period, producers will need to collect from existing public space recycling locations that are currently collected by Niagara Region's contractors. But starting January 1, 2026, they will only need to collect when full, and the number is determined based on the formula that you see on this screen. So the number of containers is based on that formula, and then also the location and type of containers will be determined by the producers. And as Catherine mentioned, there could be some potential changes to the ICNI recycling collection. For example, if Niagara Region does decide to not collect from recycling from ICNI that currently receive our service, they would need to secure third-party contracts. Or if Niagara Region does decide to continue recycling collection from these properties, there could be changes to collection date, times, and days. Next slide, please. Distribution and purchase of containers becomes the responsibility of CMO's contractor, as well as taking calls related to recycling collection issues. Broken containers are currently collected by recycling vehicles, and it is uncertain if this will continue. Niagara Region will still be responsible for containers and calls related to green bin and garbage collection and recycling from the ICNI sector. Next slide, please. Finally, there could be some changes related to how recycling is collected and what is collected. So CMO will be promoting that the blue box material should not be placed inside plastic bags when set out. If Miller and GFL, as Catherine mentioned, are successful in contracting with CMO during the transition period, there should be little to no disruption to existing collection services, but the collection times, for example, could change. Starting January 1, 2026, producers are only required to collect blue box material every other week. However, CMO has indicated they do not plan to change the collection frequency at this time. And again, collection methodology could also change after January 1, 2026. So example, they can move to carts or single stream collection. But again, CMO has indicated they do not plan to change the methodology at this time. And as Catherine mentioned, more material will be accepted in the Blue Box program starting January 1, 2026. Next slide, please.
And just in closing, I want to note that we are going to be taking reports back to Public Works around the depot collection service and the collection to non-eligible sources. As I mentioned, we are in negotiations right now with Miller and GFL and obtaining a price to service those non-eligible sources. We are currently reviewing our policies related to waste collection and our bylaws, and we'll be bringing reports back on any required amendments to those documents. And also we are and have been instructed by council to undertake promotions prior to January 1st, 2024 to advise all stakeholders and users of the program the changes that may occur. This will be done through various avenues, our website, our app, print material. We want to make sure that any changes that affect, again, the users of the program, that they're made aware. And lastly, Niagara Region will support all the local area municipalities during this transition where required. We have been keeping municipalities abreast of these changes, and we appreciate the opportunity to come forth this evening and inform Lincoln Council of these changes. And as I said, the members of public that are watching this evening. So thank you again for the opportunity, and Sherry and I would be happy to address any questions from council members.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Director, and also Sherry, thank you very much for your participation. Do members of council have any questions? I see several on the list, and I'll begin with Councillor Pachiriva.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Thank you very much, ladies, for coming. Catherine, nice to put a face to the emails I send you, and I want to give you props because whenever there's an issue in Ward 2 and I contact Ms. Habermile, they are usually resolved within 2 hours. So you make me look like a superstar, Catherine. So thanks again for that. So question or a comment. So presentation, you know, we've seen social media posts, we've seen Facebook posts that the sky is falling. It's not. It's going to continue pretty much status quo without the collection of freezer bag sandwich bags. Is that correct for 2024? And that this is going to come off the backs of the taxpayers and going to be the cost of the producers?
So through the mayor, and thank you for the question and thank you for the compliments. I really have to a shout out to my staff because they're the ones that do all the heavy lifting. So, so to your question, yes, there should be, the province has indicated that they want the transition to be as seamless as possible to the users, and Circular Materials is endeavored to make that transition happen. And so that's why they've come first to the municipalities to see if we want to provide the service on their behalf. And failing that, they're going to the existing contractors to undertake those negotiations. Yes, you're correct that there will be changes to the material that's collected, but they're in Niagara, they're minor. And come 2026, that list expands to accept a number of items that is not currently accepted here in Niagara. And to your last point, this really is about making the producers responsible for the materials and packaging that they generate at end of life when it ends up in the Blue Box program. And so it is coming off the backs of the taxpayers. You know, as I noted, there will be some savings. We just don't know how much at this point because there's a number of decisions that still need to be made. And we are just beginning our 2024 budget preparations.
Yeah, thank you very much. And through you, your worship. So, and Catherine, then go, so in 2024, when this new collection process starts, I can still take my freezer and sandwich bags because I'm diligent on saving those and putting them in a separate plastic bag. I can drop that off at Road 12 when I take my yard waste up there, correct? Because there'll be a point there where there'll be a collection for this.
Through the mayor, no, actually,
Oh.
that material will come out of our program. And if we negotiate with Circular Materials to operate a drop-off depot, a collection
Okay.
point at our depot, it will be the materials that fall under the regulation. So it'll be similar to the curbside program.
Okay, and then third question, if I may, your worship. I think it's really important that special events collection continues for I think that's the best $35,000 you'll ever spend from a regional standpoint. Having attended Canal Days on Friday night and Rib Fest on Saturday, and knowing the events that we put on here and having done events in the past, that's a service that event organizers depend on. So maybe an opportunity going forward, Catherine, and maybe this is something that can be negotiated because when I do my newspapers, I don't want them to blow all over the street. So I put them in a plastic bag and then I put my cardboard on top. And it's saying that they don't want the group now don't want that going forward. So we had dabbled with this before. Councilor Frost, we saw this at AMO where there's a netting that can go over the gray bin. So throw your papers in there, have this netting go over because, you know, in Niagara, we get a lot of wind. It's not generated by the politicians, it's generated by the weather and the prevailing winds off the lake. So if you don't put those newspapers and such together, they're all over the neighborhood. So need to negotiate something with this, with the CMO to say, hey, maybe there's an opportunity here. If this is what you want going forward, then this is what we should implement. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, thank you for the question, and through the mayor. The reality is, come January 1st of 2024, Niagara Region will have no obligation, no responsibility, and no say in the Blue Box program. It moves over to the producers. They are fully responsible for that program financially and operationally. So I can take it away. We can have that conversation internally, but my first reaction is that we have no obligation and no responsibility in the program. But I'll take that away. We can have some internal discussions and look at perhaps, you know, bylaws and other ways to control litter in the neighborhood. But we will not be able to sell netting to residents to put on the boxes.
No, I'm not saying the region. I'm saying through you, your worship, I'm saying that CMO could undertake this and you could still use this as an ace in your pocket as you're negotiating going forward with other things, right? If this is what they want, then common sense would dictate this is the result that needs to take place. So thank you. Thanks, your worship.
Thanks very much. I'm going to go up next to Councillor Russell on the board.
Thank you,
ahead,
Madam Mayor.
Councillor.
Through you to the presenter. Just want to go back to slide 8. I'm wondering if you could just give a little more insight into the cost savings and the use of reserves for the last 3 or 4 years. Do you have any idea of how much reserves have been used over the last little while to keep the cost down?
Through the mayor, I don't have that number handy. I can certainly provide that to council. I will elaborate on the use of reserves. The reasoning for that was, if you recall back when we started a new collection contract, the cost had increased significantly due to a number of factors. And so rather than put that all onto the tax requisitions, we opted to use reserves to bring that down to, I think the plan was 9% increase for 3 years, and then the second year, I think we decided to go in at 5% increase. So if you want a dollar number, I can certainly provide that through the clerk.
Okay, thank you for that. And follow up. So again, if the reserves were being tapped back in 2020, that decision would have had to been made in the 2019 year for the 2020 budget. So I'm just wondering if the taxpayers are going to have to pay back that amount going back to 2019, even though this program wasn't announced until 2021. So again, on your slide, it says that there was going to be an idea of cost savings coming down the road because of this program, but it would have been a couple years after you had already started tapping the reserves to keep the cost down. So I'm hoping that you can confirm whether or not taxpayers, they're only going to be on the hook from when this program was announced, and the reserves were used knowing that there were savings going forward as opposed to going back to 2019.
Yeah, so through the mayor, the decision, you're right, you're correct. The decision was made in 2029 for the 2020 budget and 2021 budget. Well, actually, sorry, let me rephrase that. It would have been made in 2020, the decision for the 2021 budget, because the new contract started in October of 2020. So to your question specifically, we'd go back and look at the reserves that were used in those 2 years to offset the increase of the collection costs.
Okay, so maybe it's just a typo because it says on the slide, beginning in 2020, reserves were used, which means the decision would have been made in 2019 instead of beginning in the year 2021, where again, then it's a direct correlation to when this program would have been announced.
Yeah, what I can say is that we won't go back further in terms of what dollars were used from reserve. The decision to make those reserve funds was based on the new collection contract. And so we're not going to go further back to 2018, 2017.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. To you, to our presenter. Thank you very much for bringing this information forward. I will admit that there's a lot to be covered here. I know that a few years ago when we moved to collecting garbage just once every 2 weeks rather than once a week, one of the motivations behind that was to reduce garbage in landfills and increase recycling. So this is kind of a two-part question. Was that the results? And if it was the result, do we see that this new system is going to continue that? Or is that do you foresee as a region that we're going to run into more garbage, less recycling because people are challenged by some of the changes?
Through the mayor, certainly, as I said, the goal of the program of the new regulation is to put the onus on the producers who actually produce the packaging and be responsible for end of life management of that packaging. I don't see that impacting our services. As I mentioned, come 2026, the list of acceptable materials will be expanding. And so those materials that are currently ending up in our green garbage bag now will be placed in the blue box for recycling. With respect to your question on every other week, we did see, and I might ask Sherry to jump in here, but we did see certainly the results that we wanted to see. The garbage went down, the recycling went up by 80%, and organics. Sherry, help me out. Do you have the percentages handy?
I don't have them off
Okay.
the top of my head,
Okay.
but I think, yeah, we increased the tonnages for organics, and then organics and recycling. Organics, we saw the greater increase. Obviously, just there was more room there for improvement, but there was seen increases in both.
Thank you.
Conversely, we saw the garbage in the green bin go down. So we were happy. We anticipated that's what would occur, and that's what we saw, and that was what other municipalities who implemented every other week garbage. Those were the results that they saw as well.
Thank you. So just so I can just to clarify, so you're anticipating that by 2026, that trajectory of less garbage, more recycling will continue in that upward direction.
That's certainly, sorry, through the mayor, that's certainly what we hope occurs. And, you know, as I said, with Miller and GFL continuing to service, and we're hoping that the negotiations between CMO and those two providers continue, that the transition for the residents here in Niagara will be seamless. Other than there'll be someone else they'll call, they'll get their blue and gray box from a different provider. The collection services should remain.
Thank you. Mayor Easton, another question, if I may. So then similar, just to follow up on that, what you just said now too, that as of 2025, the region will not be responsible for recycling. So when residents have a challenge or an issue, right now they call the region and say, hey, no one picked it up or whatever the challenge is. Do we have a communications plan in place to facilitate them no longer calling the region, but actually calling the CMO or whoever the provider is directly?
So through the mayor, once the final decisions are made around those non-eligible sources in the depot service come September, we will be engaging our corporate, and we have actually been talking to them, our corporate communication folks. We will be implementing a communication plan to make sure that all program users are fully aware of any changes that impact them directly. And to your point, who do they call? Where do they get their blue and gray boxes? Because they may not potentially be getting them from Niagara region. So we want to make sure that those messages are clear. Certainly, if someone calls the region, we'll transfer them over to the provider, whatever number that is available. And we want this to be seamless for the residents.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Councillor. You're on mute.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you call my name, Madam Mayor, but now I realize you are. So thank you. Thank you, Catherine, for the presentation. My question is about the first bullet on slide 15. CMO will be promoting that blue box material should not be placed inside plastic bags when set out. Do we know why that is? Because that's one of the solutions that we've had over the last few years when people have said, you know, they're seeing all their recycling blow all over the neighborhood out of their blue boxes. Blue boxes are getting knocked over on windy days. The answer has been put your stuff in a clear plastic bag and put it out there, and that at least if it blows to the end of the street, it's blowing at the end of the street in a plastic bag and somebody can pick it up. It's not blowing in 100 different pieces. So I'm wondering why that recommendation will be in place if you know that.
Yeah, through the mayor, plastic film or plastic bags is quite challenging in the processing facility. In fact, Niagara region, when other municipalities were making that change, we held off for a bit because we knew it would be challenging. You have to have the equipment and the manpower, staff power to open those bags. The material comes in, if it's ripped, it tangles around the equipment. So processing, it causes a lot of challenges on the processing side, and therefore it also increases the cost of processing. So I'm going to ask Sherry to jump in because I know she's been in conversations with CMO on this specifically, but that's what I can tell you in terms of my knowledge of just plastic bags in general.
Yes, as Catherine had mentioned, CMO has indicated that it does cause issues on the processing side. So that is why they would be suggesting that the material not be placed in plastic bags.
Okay, I can understand that. I've sometimes wondered what happens to the plastic bags too. We're creating more recycling by putting them in plastic bags, but that, you know, as I mean, we'll see what happens in the future, but there's going to be a lot of questions about that kind of thing. As Councillor Pachariva mentioned earlier on, it's been an ongoing issue. We hear a lot about it, not so much lately, but maybe that's because people are using plastic bags to put their stuff out. I haven't heard a lot of concerns lately, but and Madam Mayor, one more question.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Oh, thank you. A little further to Councillor Murray's question. Currently, people feel confident that they can contact a councillor or they can contact someone at the town or someone at the region if they have concerns about recycling collection. And we have heard about that, as I was saying earlier on, quite a bit over the years, as it particularly related to littering. So if someone's going to ask me what's going to happen in the future, what's the incentive for private collection? What is the incentive for the private collector, the person having the contract, to do a great job other than what it has been in the past, and that it's being run by the region and people can reach out to the region or their local councillor and complain if there's concerns. So I think I want to hear that. What's the incentive to do a good job?
Yeah, through the mayor, and that's a great question. So I'll answer in two ways here. The service provider will be under contract with the producers to provide the service, and there'll be specific clauses in terms that they must meet. So that's the incentive for them. I haven't seen their contract, but as I understand it, there may be penalties in those contracts if they don't fulfill the contract. Secondly, the producers, and then the producer responsibility organization, meaning CMO, they have to meet certain targets within the regulations. And so that's the incentive. They must meet those targets. And the targets are not for each material type, but they're bundled into plastics and paper. And so they have to meet those targets under the regulation.
If I can
Okay.
just, sorry, if I can just add to what Catherine is saying, there have some municipalities that have currently transitioned already, some bigger and some smaller. And what we've heard so far, now we're about, a month in, is that the transition has gone smoothly. There has been obviously some, some redirection of calls because, as you said, residents are used to calling their local area municipalities. But overall, based on what we've heard, the transition has gone smoothly in those communities.
That's good news. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And now we have Councillor Reimer.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Through you to the presenters. Thank you very much, Sherry and Catherine, for being here tonight and for the presentation. A couple of councillors kind of touched on a couple of my questions. Thank you for the communication answer about your corporate communication services working on getting this out and what the changes are going to be for our residents and for using the word seamless. I like that in some of your answers. Pre the last waste collection contract, us around the table here, and I'm sure Councillor Foster would attest to many people concerned about garbage and recycling. So just wanted to thank you for your reassurances that the average residents will not see any change in their service or will not notice any impact. Just to pick up on Councillor Njima's question though, asking from a different point of view, who is CMO answerable to? So I understood your answer about their specifics in their contract, but who enforces that? Who is the overseer? So we've always had the region who kind of overlooked that contract. Who ensures that CMO is doing what they're supposed to be doing? Through to Catherine.
So thank you for the question, and through Madam Mayor, I'll start, and maybe I'll have Sherry jump in on this as well. So there's an organization, RIPRA, who is an arm's length organization from the province. They are actually responsible for monitoring and enforcement of the regulation. And so they have the ability to issue monetary fines for non-compliance.
Just to follow up, Mayor Easton, if I may, could you say that again, Catherine, that acronym, and then what that actually stands for?
So it's RIPRA, RP, I'm going to get it wrong, Resource Project.
Productivity and Recovery.
Yeah, and Recovery Association. Yeah, I had to write it out.
Yeah, Recovery Authority. Yeah.
And they are, sorry, Mary, one more follow-up. And they've been put in this, you said they're arm's length. They are put there by the province. So they are a member of something, or how do they?
So they're a not-for-profit organization.
Okay. And they answer to the province?
Correct.
Thank you very much, Sherry and Catherine. Thank you, Marison.
Right. Okay, great. Counselor Mikulik.
Thank you very much, Mary, and through you to Catherine. Yeah, nothing better than a conversation about trash to get everyone talking. Question I've heard a lot. There's a lot of questions. The presentation has a lot of scenarios, but after all of this, could you simplify it for me as a person taking my trash to the road? Like, what does this look like? Am I not going to be able to put forks, knives, single-use containers, bags in the blue box anymore? Is that going to have to be a separate, I'm sure it's been told already, but I just need to simplify for myself as on a Friday morning, taking my trash out. What is that going to look like? Or what are we hoping for that to look like?
Through Madam Mayor, great question, because it really is, it's a very complex issue, and there's a lot in our slides, but for the residents starting January 1st of 2024, in terms of what goes in the blue box, the only thing that changes is you'll no longer be able to put your plastic food bags, the freezer sandwich bags in the box, or books. So that's January 1st of 2024. Fast forward to January 1st of 2026, that's when the province will be introducing new materials to the blue box. And so then you'll be able to put in single-use packaging or products such as cutlery, straws, multi-laminate packaging, which is packaging that's made up of multiple layers, such as your frozen food bags that you may have in your freezer, like blueberry, strawberry, vegetables, those type of bags. So it will expand. And so those are the changes that residents will see in terms of what goes into the blue box.
Thank you. I just want to, do we have in place a grace period for this? Because I know that people are going to have to, they're going to have to get used to this new style of collection. And if there's a bag accidentally left in the blue box, the garbage man will probably leave the whole bin. And I think that's going to happen quite a bit. That happens already to this day, where, oops, you get that yellow or orange sticker on is there going to be some sort of grace period for a month or a couple of weeks to give people an opportunity to get used to this new system?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll start, and I'll ask Sherry to provide some comments as well. So in the contract with CMO, there is clauses that allow the contractor, the service provider to, so there is a contamination level that they have to meet, and I think it was around 4%. So they can't bring in any more of their load being 4% of contaminants. So if they continually see that, then the service provider has the ability or time to make changes. They have to come up with a plan. So there are provisions within that contract to allow the service provider to make changes. And that it could include additional promotion and education, or it could be something else that they come up with to change behaviors of the residents within the area that they service. Sherry, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add.
I can just add, since we are in communication with other municipalities that have transitioned, they are, in the ones that we've talked to, the contractors are using those OOPS stickers or those, non-compliant stickers to notify residents when there is any issues. So we do expect that would continue as well.
Okay, perfect. Then, yeah, no, I just think, thinking about people and their behaviors, the easier the better. The easiest thing to do is just throw it all in the garbage bag, black bag. And the toughest thing to do is to actually go through the sorting. And then third question, through you, just regarding the depots where people or who can, how many are we forecasting or are we hoping for? If they're too far away, thinking from my perspective, like Councillor Pachariva mentions going to the Land 12, well, that's a 25-minute drive for me. I don't see myself really in a hurry to do that. How many waste depots, collection sites would we be hoping for within a municipality?
So through the mayor, it would be our existing 4 sites that we have now. And this really is just to complement the curbside services. So there's no discussion about curbside services at this point going away. So the depots are really just a convenience depot. So if you don't want to put out for curbside, you take it to the depot. So there's 4 depots right now. There's one at our Bridge Street drop-off depot in Fort Erie, one at Humberstone Road Landfill in Welland, Walker Industries in Thorold, and then Niagara Road 12 landfill site in West Lincoln.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, councillors. Catherine, I just want to try and make this as simple as I can. Presently, you circulate quite a large, it's almost like a broadsheet sized paper, very colored, tons of information on it. I think that almost every question that you'd ask about where does this go, is on that sheet. And I'm hoping that the people that are responsible in the future will do something similar. So when I think of what's on that list that we collect that goes into the recycling depot that we've been operating but won't be operating in the future, is it fair to say that the list that you just recited for Councillor Mikulik and the rest of us we can find them on those sheets and we can just remove those items, put a cross between those items that aren't going to be collected, and that's the list. We can just keep going back to that list until we have a new list. Just have to take off those 2 bags and the 2 types of bags and the book covers, or is it books altogether?
So thank you for the question. So really it is just those 2 items. They did talk about the returnable LCBO bottles, but I think now they've allowed us to continue collecting those. And we know that a lot of that material is scavenged from the box anyway. So to answer your question, yes, it's really those 2 materials. And we've already started having discussions internally about how we communicate to the residents, knowing that this will not be our responsibility, but also we know that it's our obligation to make sure that this is a seamless transition. So we may, for next year, we may print that guide, we may do something different, but we want to make sure that residents understand what goes in the box and what doesn't. We have our waste app that I think we're going to continue, but make sure we note in there that this is now the obligation or responsibility of the stewards or producers. So we're having those conversations. We want to make sure that residents understand what goes in the box and what doesn't and what changes are happening. And I also just take this opportunity, staff have developed a Q&A, and so we will be sending that out to the municipalities shortly. And so that can be distributed to councillors to help them through this and navigate through this change.
I can just add quickly to that as well, that staff are also meeting with Circular Materials Ontario or CMO and their communications department so that we can help them in their communications to residents as well and ensure that they're communicating properly, and also get a sense of what they're doing as well, so we can complement it.
That's excellent. Well, it sounds like the overlap, if you want to call it that, a slight overlap, will be in all of our best interest. So we thank you very much for that. I see no other questions, councillors. I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell and seconded by Councillor Murray that council receive and file for information the following presentation and delegation: Catherine Habermill and Sherry Tate from Niagara Region Residential Blue Box Transition. And thank you very much, Catherine and Sherry. We appreciate your being here and helping us get ahead of this. Madam Clerk, would you call out the vote?
And the vote is now open. Counselor Rajima, I'll need your vote, please. And I'll take that. You're in favor? Thank you. Now I'll close the vote. That carries, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The motion carried. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we'll move on now to item 10.2, which is the Regional Councillor update. Councillor Foster, would you please come forward?
Good evening. Good discussion in and around waste management. As I mentioned some time before, I'm on the Waste Management Steering Committee at Niagara Region as well. And a lot of the questions that that you brought up this evening are being discussed at the steering committee level. And probably the most critical thing is going to be the communications aspect that are coming into play as we're moving down the road. So anyway, we're quite aware of that. The 5.8 million that Catherine made mention of as it's going on. Certainly the region has to take a good look at this as we go through our budget process this year and decide how and where that's some of those monies are going to be used. Anyway, it's just like here at the town, got to make decisions from a budget point of view. So thank you very much for allowing me to delegate again this evening. And just my notes that I sent out to you guys. This is committee week at Niagara Region. We went through 2 meetings today. Both Mayor Easton and I are both on the Public Works and Public Health Committee. Good news for Councillor Pachariva and Councillor Brunet is that the continuation of community safety zones is moving out. There was 12 were approved at least at committee today, and one of them is of course Mountain. So so we shall see.
Order.
Settle down. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have any control of this council. Pretty obvious. Anyway, yeah, it's this is all sort of going to be coming into play. There was a lot of discussion this morning at Public Works in and around the cameras that are going to be coming into play. And as you guys know, we're not first, but particularly with Victoria, but it's coming soon, and it's going to be shifted in and around. The discussion this morning was quite interesting. Mayor Cisco, for sure, is pushing for even more community safety zones in and through communities within the St. Catharines area. And of course, we're in the same boat here, wanting to continue pushing some of these things as well. So we shall see. But I got to tell you, one of the funniest things that I've seen in a while was one of our councillors decided this morning that he says, well, I'm going to get called because this is a money grab. And I says, you know something, I'm really looking forward to that day when that person gives me a phone call telling me that they were speeding through a school zone and a community safety zone, and that they're upset because it's a cash grab. Well, I says, I will certainly be ready for doing the lecture when that one particularly comes into place. So public health today was a good news public health meeting. If you want to put it that way, we increased monies being spent in the social assistance area, 1.28 million in addition coming into play. The child care and early on system, there was some additional funding that's come into play of 6.23 million. And the emergency shelters, even though it wasn't a huge increase, it was 300,000 that we approved increases in those areas. But it's a total of 17 million now when it comes to emergency shelters and spending. And as you've read in the newspapers as well, there's lots of discussion going on in and around shelters, as well as various facilities that are being put into place right across Niagara. So we'll have a chance to have more discussions on that in the near future. Tomorrow at Corporate Services, the committee that I chair, we're going to be doing approval of a lobbyist registrar. This has been long overdue. In particular, Councillor Yip out of St. Catharines has been pushing this now for a few years, and so there's a contract that's going to be going into place tomorrow, or at least my expectation is the committee will be doing that. There's the Lincoln request for interest charge. It's an administrative manner that's coming into play. So that's going to be discussed tomorrow. And there's a councillor motion to support the AMO Code of Conduct recommendations. So Councillor Hewson out of Pelham is bringing that one forward, although she's not on the committee, but for some reason it's landed on our committee. And in planning, there's an interesting issue coming up with Niagara Falls. There's been a request by a developer to go and change industrial land into residential land in Niagara Falls. The region has reviewed this, and the region is saying, no, this is not a very good move. The City of Niagara Falls Council said, oh yes, no problem, go ahead. So this one is going to be fascinating because I am firmly of the belief in that changing industrial into residential is not in the interest of the region in any way, shape, or form. So, and we've seen this over and over again, and I keep reminding people that, you know, we as the town of Lincoln have little in the way of industrial land left. So, and we have to deal with that from a taxation point of view. There's other areas, if people are coming here, they need to work somewhere. So, so anyway, that's the approach I'll be taking tomorrow in planning with that one. And I also put on my notes for you the AMO conference. I'm looking forward to being there again this year. I'm starting on the Saturday. We have the board meeting going on Saturday and on Sunday again, board meetings for AMO. And then, of course, the expo opens and away we go. So anyway, I look forward. I'm sure many of you are going to the conference as well. So if you're going to be there, I look forward to seeing you, and hopefully this is going to be a great conference in beautiful City of London. That's it for my report tonight.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And I'm starting with question from Councillor Timmers.
Thank you very much, Maryston. Just about the community safety, and I'm sure the ward councillors will want to speak to this as well. On Mountain Street, I'm really happy to hear that. I don't know if you would have this answer for me, but I can't help but look at Albright Manor and hope that it expands that far to Hillside. I don't know, maybe it's too far. Sorry, it does say that, doesn't it, in the report? Idleheim? Okay. Anyway, that's one of my points. I just feel that I tend to agree that community safety zones should be in more places than, like, they should be in front of all schools, in my opinion. But I think they also need to encompass senior facilities. You know, there are a lot of residents that walk along Mountain Street from Albright Manor. And I just want to make that comment, and I'm sure it's already been thought of, and it works out perfect that they are really close together, just like Victoria Avenue and Heritage Village. You know, it just happens to be that they're in the same vicinity. So anyway, sorry, Mayor, question around Victoria Avenue. So you said that it's coming soon. Do you have a time frame on that?
So a couple of things. First of all, referring to more community safety zones and doing stuff.
Yeah.
My preference is for people to stop driving like complete idiots.
I think that'd be mine too.
That is my first preference. Number two, when it comes to community safety zones, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to be putting them in certain areas. Again, remember what a community safety zone is doing is it's doubling the fines in and through that particular area. So I think the town of Lincoln, I give you guys full credit for doing good jobs on reducing some of the speed limits in and around, particularly in subdivisions. I have followed the same suit, thanks to the town here with various regional roads and reducing speed limits within those particular areas. So the community safety zone really, in the end, it increases the value of a particular fine that's coming to place. But really, I just wish people would kind of smarten up and stop driving so foolishly. The cameras. So there's actually four sets of cameras, and they're going to be shifted between the differing community safety zones with the schools in and around Niagara. I do know that we're supposed to be getting it into our town relatively early in this process. So anyway, if I remember correctly, and Mary Easton, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they were looking at our area having them coming out in early next year, in Q1, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm not going to swear by that.
That's probably good.
Yeah.
Who knows what will happen between now and then?
Yeah.
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay, that's close enough, but thank you. I just, I've had people asking me and I was curious as well. So anyway, thank you very much for your report.
Thanks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Robert, this is your best report to Lincoln Town Council ever.
Oh, why is
So
that?
not only did we get the community safety zone from Mountain Street from Idleheim to Beam, which is tremendous. Councillor Timmers and I attended the daycare at the high school, so the early on system's getting money, increase in social assistance, emergency shelters. You've ticked all the boxes we've been chatting about. So
I did this for you,
Robert. I you know what? I'm tipping my hat to you. So thank you. Just though in the report, Rob, it says that we're going to start with the existing 13 community safety zones, and that you'll be talking about launching them in the new CSZs in Q1 of 2024.
That would be my expectation, or longer than that. And the reason is that when a community safety zone does go into play, there's a whole sequence of things follows through. And that's why, and as I know, much to yours and Councillor Brunet's frustration on Mountain Street, there are a sequence of things that go through when they do this. One is they have the police presence to go and do those things. They start by issuing warnings as they're going through. Then they start increasing the push on that particular thing. It was mentioned in the meeting this morning that no, you're not going to see cameras there right away. No. Because again, these things are going to be rotating. But the other thing, and this was actually brought up quite nicely by Mayor Cisco this morning again, basically saying, well, why aren't we putting up cameras at all of the places? Excellent question. There's this little thing called budget that we go through along with everyone else. These things are not inexpensive. So anyway, reality is that we're going to be increasing, and we're going to see actually how effective it is as we're starting into this particular process. So
yeah, that's what the report said through Your Worship on an evaluation of. I mean, I think, when you talk to people in these neighborhoods and they're the ones that live there and they see the speeding firsthand, I mean, I think they're going to pay for themselves, and I think they're going to be a godsend. And like you say, this is for the people that won't slow down. And I'd like to see it taken one step further. Again, this is a community safety zone. It's a school zone. Our kids are walking to school there. We have walk and ride programs to get to school safely. I would publish these scofflaws in the newspaper like we do the when they do the DUI blitzes.
well, now you're asking an opinion, and and by the way, I listen. I think
because you said you wouldn't take you wouldn't back down to when someone calls you and say, I got a cash to grab, I got a ticket for $200 because I was speeding in a school zone.
The only problem with the cameras on the cars and stuff like that is that it's seeing the car. So the best that you're going to
Oh,
be
you're
able to
right.
do
It could
is,
be, I
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
driving.
If it was me that was doing it and Sue gets blamed for it, I can tell you that it would be hell to pay in my household. So anyway.
I got you.
Yeah, so, but DUI and those types of things, it's very clear why.
Okay. No, understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. All right, no other questions. I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet, seconded by Councillor Reimer, that council receive and file for information the following delegation, Regional Council, Councillor Foster. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
The vote is open, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Councillor Rajima, can I have your vote, please? In favor? And that carries.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion is carried. We'll now move on to item number 11, which is items for consideration. This evening, we have 4 items brought forward. And the first is correspondence from the Niagara region dated July 24th, 2023 regarding Niagara Road 12 landfill site Citizens Liaison Committee. Madam Clerk, you have an announcement.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. As per the correspondence, members of council are to appoint 1 council representative to the Niagara Road 12 landfill site Citizens Liaison Committee for the full term of council. The process will be as follows, as we've typically followed in the past with respect to the appointment process. Please raise your hand if you're interested in being appointed to this committee and wait to be called by the chair, Madam Mayor, to speak. Once called, state your comments. Please raise your hand if you would like to nominate another member of council to this committee and wait to be called by the chair to speak. Once called, state your nomination for that member. The clerk will ask the member who is nominated by another member of council if they accept the nomination. If they don't, we move on. If they do, we will note that nomination. Once we hear from all those who are interested, we will ask for a seconder and we'll vote in order of received. I will now open the floor to members of council to nominate themselves or another member to the Niagara Road 12 landfill site Citizens Liaison Committee.
I'm recognizing Councillor Timmers. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Mary Easton. I would like to recommend Councillor and nominate Councillor Reimer. I think he did a very good job representing us last term of council, and I think he would make a very good representative for us.
All right, thank you very
Thank you.
much, Councillor. And Councillor Reimer, do you accept the nomination?
He's nodding yes that he does accept, Madam
Yes.
Mayor. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Is there any other, are there any other nominations? That seems to be
I'm
it,
seeing
Madam
none.
Clerk.
So Madam Mayor, I do need a mover and a seconder, please.
All right, mover is Councillor Timmers and the seconder is Councillor Pachariba.
Thank you. All right, we have Just give me-
moved by Councillor Timmers, seconded by Councillor Pachariba, that the Town of Lincoln Council appoint Councillor Reimer to the Niagara 12 landfill site Citizens Liaison Committee for the term of council 2022 to 2026. Madam Clerk, would you please document the vote? Please open the vote.
The vote is now open, Madam Mayor. Councillor Rajima, can I have your vote? And that's in favor. And I will close that vote and that carries. Thank you.
Thanks very much. The motion is carried. Thanks, Madam Clerk. All right, our next item for consideration this evening is from the Council Information Package, the week ending July 28th from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority regarding the Canada Water Agency and the Canada-United States Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement funding opportunities. And Mr. CAO has a few comments on this correspondence.
Through you, Madam Mayor. With respect to that first piece of correspondence on funding opportunities, staff will be reviewing that and seeing if there's any synergies or opportunities as it relates to some of our shoreline and shoreline protection work, and we will be reporting back to council. I know we've had conversations with NPCA as it relates to some of the other remediation works that are in play, and definitely can report back through members, through committee to members of council.
Members have any questions? All right, we'll move on then to the next item, which is also from the Council Information Package week ending July 28th. And this from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority regarding NPCA comments on the proposed provincial planning statement. Mr. CAO.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So definitely some more comments to make on this particular item. This does pertain to the province recently releasing the natural heritage policies proposed as part of the draft provincial policy and planning statement that is currently in the review period. I think we've talked with members of council about this in the past. You heard a little bit of this with the recent provincial announcements and the changes to the various bills and the growth plan. There have been some changes from the PPS, the provincial policy statement from 2020 to 2023, and how that relates to the growth plan, but really focus on, I think, some of the areas of concern or some of the areas as it relates to oversight. The Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority is making its case, and I think highlighting the importance of continuing to look at natural heritage features and their role in that. And specifically as it relates to sub-watershed plans, stormwater master and management plans, as well as some of the key hydrological features. So we're in a bit of a waiting game. There is a commenting period now. It'll be interesting to follow this and to see what the province and the region, I think, and the NPCA are able to land on. But definitely some recent policy changes that the province has made to the natural heritage and wetland evaluation system is impacting us all.
Very good. Thank you very much. Do members have any questions? The next item for consideration is from the Council Information Package ending July 28th, 2023 from the Township of Brudenell, Lyndoch and Raglan regarding declaring intimate partner violence and violence against women an epidemic. I requested of the clerk that we put this on for discussion. And as a result of the attendance of Councillor Timmers, Councillor Reimer, myself, and a number of staff at Jillian's place, they were able to share with us some of the challenges that they are being faced with because of the intensity of some of the personal circumstances that women, and in many cases, the children of that family are being exposed to. A serious lack of alternate housing is also another feature of this, and one that we need to be aware of and also ensure that we take action on in our Housing Select Committee. Do members have any questions on this item? Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Mikulik and seconded by Councillor Russell. The council receive and file for information the following items of correspondence. Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority dated July 21st, 2023, regarding the Canada Water Agency and Canada United States Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement funding opportunities. Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority dated July the 21st, 2023, regarding NPCA comments on the proposed provincial planning statement. Township of Brudenell, Lindock, and Raglan dated July 6th, 2023, regarding declaring intimate partner violence and violence against women an epidemic. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is now open. Councilor Rajima, can I have your vote, please? Thank you. I'll close that vote. And that carries. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion is carried, and we move on to item 12, which is a motion to approve the previous council minutes. And we're now considering item 12.1, the council minutes of July 17th, 2023. Do members of council have any questions? There being none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Rajima and seconded by Councillor Reimer. The council approved the minutes of the following meetings of council. Council minutes of July 17th, 2023. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
And the vote is open. Councilor Rajima. Thank you.
Item 13 is the recommendations from standing committees. And we're now considering the following. Committee of the Whole workshop minutes of July 24th, 2023. Committee of the Whole minutes of July 31st, 2023. Do members of council have any questions? I see none. I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet, seconded by Councillor Timmers, that council approve the following recommendations from standing committee. Committee of the Whole workshop minutes of July 24th, 2023. Committee of the Whole minutes of July 31st, 2023. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
The vote is open. Councilor Rajima, I'll need your vote. Thank you. And I will close that, and that carries, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion is carried. Moving on now to item 14, notice of motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very pleased to bring this introduction of motion for the tree protection policy and bylaw review. As everyone I'm sure is very familiar, we do have policies and bylaws currently in place, but this is asking staff, and I want to thank Director Bruder and the CAO over the last 4 or 5 months for entertaining a number of emails and discussions that we've had, and their willingness to look at this. I know their tasks, their weekly tasks are heavy, but I think this is something that's very important with a number of things that have happened over the last couple of years with regards to trees, not only in development, but private tree bylaws, as well as things that have been developing at the Heritage Committee. So I think very quickly, Madam Mayor, you know, this is an opportunity for the town of Lincoln to review the private and public tree protection policies and bylaws to ensure that they reflect current best practices, and then come back with appropriate and required updates following the necessary stakeholder and industry engagement. And I think that will be very important. We have worked very hard, staff has worked very hard to engage, you know, organizations like Vineland Research and Innovation, Brock University, but I'm sure there are many other opportunities to engage stakeholders, residents in the community, and then come back with enforcing our tree protection policies and bylaws to make sure that, you know, we are looking at our tree canopy and our biodiversity in the town of Lincoln. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Counselor. And I just want to reinforce for everyone who's viewing that this is one of the most important roles that council has to make new bylaws and also to review bylaws and ensure that they are current. Staff is here to assist us with that, and this is certainly one that has been recently quite troublesome and very appropriate, Counselor. Thank you very much for bringing it forward. All right. We move on to item 15, which is reports of municipal officers, and we're now considering item 15.1, which is the mayor's report. And I'm pleased that I have a few items to report to you this evening, and I'd like to start with one that received quite a bit of media coverage. And I hope that if you haven't read it, that you will, because this doesn't happen very often. And this is the media release that was related to the Lincoln wineries, actually 3 Lincoln wineries on the benchlands, all of them, securing the top 3 national spots at the 2023 National Wine Awards of Canada. And the article was published August the 4th, 2023 by the town. And I'll just read the initial paragraph, which states that the town of Lincoln is thrilled to share the extraordinary success of its local wineries at the 2023 National Wine Awards of Canada, solidifying the Niagara Benchlands destinations as a leader in wine excellence for Canada's grape and wine industry. With over 211 wine awards in total, including 7 platinum medals, 45 gold medals, 91 silver medals, and 68 bronze medals, the town of Lincoln's wineries in the Niagara Benchlands have achieved remarkable success. And the top 3 award winners are Hidden Bench Estate Winery, Tawes Winery, and Megalomaniac. And I'll leave it to you, ladies and gentlemen, to read the article, but it certainly stands out not only within this region against the peer groups, but certainly across Canada as an outstanding performance. I want to also draw to your attention that the town of Lincoln has been working on its strategic directions. And so we are to the point now where they're in pretty good shape. They're rounded out pretty well. And you'll see them published as Council Priorities 2022 to 26, Strategic Planning for a Future Fit Lincoln. And what is intended here is not that we would make strategic directions that would state what the obvious is in terms of how we should be performing, but building on that and ensuring that we are really and truly community building. So again, this was another report. It was published on the 1st of August, 2023. And if you would like to read that, it's certainly available for your review, and there will be more publications on that in the future. I just want to remind everyone of a rather neat opportunity within the community right now. It'll be going until August the 31st. Tickets are sold between 5 and about I guess 8:45 p.m. on any Thursday night up at the Fleming Center. And this is the Catch the Ace that is going on. It's a fundraising by the Lincoln Lions, and there's a number of very noteworthy organizations that will be receiving the final proceeds. So it's rather exciting. And so that's Thursday night, just 2 nights from now. And the tickets are sold between 5 and 9 at the Fleming Center. The July 17th was our last council, as you know, and we've been talking a bit about the Great Lakes funding for NPCA and Niagara, talking about NPCA and the Conservation Authority. But I also want to let you know that we had I guess it was really a photo op with our local member of provincial parliament. And also included was the NPCA, but also Niagara Coastal Community Collaborative, which operates out of Fort Erie, because they have some pretty active issues with Lake Erie, especially around algae formation. It provided me with an opportunity to show the executive director of Niagara Coastal Community Collaborative what's happening at the 15 Mile Creek at Charles Daly Park. And so this is an area where we've lost a great deal of shoreline over the last couple of years. And so again, we're going to be looking for sources of funding and methodology. And she was quite forthcoming in some of the natural techniques that are used. On July 18th, a number of us on council attended the check delivery, if you will, to the Youth Skills Development Fund. Premier Ford was here, and as well as the Minister of Labor, Minister McNaughton. And this was a pretty exciting day. This is the third tranche of money that has been received through the town to Civic Connects and the Youth Skills Development Funding. And it certainly allows us to put into place, put into action our intentions around the preparation of youth in terms of their early job opportunities. On July 24th, the town held a workshop on the council priorities, and I spoke of that earlier. I want to, at this time, thank Lindsay Hendricks very much for her work as the executive director of the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, and also to Jared Brandon, who has served as the president over the last few years. Both have brought a great deal of leadership and transformation to the chamber, and I wish them both well. On July the 26th, we had a rather exciting presentation with the proceeds and checks from the Mayor's Golf Tournament. There was approximately $90,000, $93,580 was brought in through the golf tournament, which was held on June 28th. And of that, what remained after all of the expenses was $60,000, and it has been distributed now among various charities. The check to the Niagara Community Foundation was $20,000, which was an increase of $5,000 over the previous years. But we also gave funds to Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Niagara, Jillian's Place, the Rotary Club of Lincoln, and Community Care of West Niagara, just to name a few. And so this continues to be a very successful day, and it's lots of fun. And I want to thank Andrea Chambers very much for the work that she put into it, and to the CAO for freeing her up. It was a very successful day. Interesting meeting on July 27th with a few other mayors. We met with the federal shadow cabinet minister for housing, the conservative member, and where we spoke about challenges with housing approvals. And I must say, as I noted with the developers, it seems to be a one-sided discussion at times when they start talking about deferring development charges. Lord Mayor from Niagara-on-the-Lake was in attendance as well. We made it pretty clear that that was a non-starter. We had our first meeting that evening with the region, so we've started already into the 2024 budget deliberations. And regardless of, picking a number out of the air, I guess, 9%. It's going to be a long and it'll be a very difficult decision-making, as I'm sure all municipalities will be faced with the same challenges. On August the 2nd, as I mentioned earlier, a number of us did attend at Jillian's place, and it was certainly worthwhile to go there and not only to hear what's happening at Jillian's place, but to speak also to some of the agencies that deal with them and provide support to them. On August the 4th, I was delighted to attend a session and an announcement at the Canada Games Park. And the announcement was the formation of Sport Niagara. There was a surplus that was announced from the Canada Games, and that surplus was 3.3 million. And that money has been invested with the Community Foundation to be used for sport initiatives in the future. So I think this is just a great beginning. It was a great ending for the games. There was no question about it. There's always talk about how much these things are going to cost. But it was certainly good news. And the whole idea of having sport facilities, and as much as we say that, going by every day I go to the region and seeing how many cars are in there, this facility is being heavily used. On August the 7th, a number of us attended in Port Colborne. This was on the weekend. If I'd known that Councillor Pachariva was going, I would have sent him on the boat yesterday, and then you could have got seasick instead of me. You would have gone. I'll have to do better in the future. But it was great. And one of the things that I really enjoyed was it was nice being out on the water, but I was able to take a look at the condition of the canal in some areas. And so it helps a bit when there's discussion about what's happening on the canal and how things are working and what's needed for the future. I've seen it firsthand. So let me just say, members and members of the public, that you live in Lincoln, which is a community of encouragement, and where every citizen strives to be a good neighbor, where children and youth are encouraged to achieve their very best, and where business contributes to growth and the sustainability of our community's vision as a place to grow, a place to prosper, and a place to belong. Thank you very much for allowing me to share these little bits of information this evening and for welcoming us into your homes. All right, members, I have a motion moved by Councillor Murray and seconded by Councillor Pachariva, that council receive and file as information the following mayor's report. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
The vote is now open, Madam Mayor. Councillor Rajima, can I get your vote, please? Thank you. And I'll close that vote, and that carries, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. All right, we'll move on now to item 16, which is confidential matters, and we have none this evening. Item 17 is a motion to approve bylaws, and we have one bylaw for consideration today. Do members have any questions? There being none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell and seconded by Councillor Mikulik that leave be given to approve the following bylaw 2023-52, bylaw to amend bylaw number 2023-01, being a bylaw to establish and regulate payment of various fees and charges within the town. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
And the vote is now open. And Councillor Rajima, I've got you as a affirmative, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. And that carries.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. The motion is carried. And now we move on to item 18, which is a motion to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting We will now confirm. We will now confirm the proceedings of the council meeting through a motion moved by Councillor Reimer, seconded by Councillor Murray, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 2022-53, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held Tuesday, August the 8th, 2023, being read a first, second, and third time. That bylaw number 2023-53 be enacted and passed, and that the mayor and clerk sign and seal the said bylaw. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thank you. And that is open. Councillor Rajima. Thank you. And
Myself,
Madam Mayor,
yes,
thank you.
Yes.
And I will close that vote and that carries. Thank you.
All right. Before we motion to adjourn the meeting, do members have any comments? There being none. I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva and seconded by Councillor Reimer that council meeting on August the 8th, 2023 be adjourned at
7:47.
1947.
Thank you. And
Madam
that vote
Clerk?
is open, Madam Mayor. And
Yes.
Councillor Rajima, I will take that in affirmative. And that carries. Thank you.
Madam Clerk. Thanks, everyone, for attending, and I hope the weather continues, Councillor Russell. Thanks, staff, for attending this evening, and thank you, councillors. This concludes our council meeting.